not so long ago, Democrats were plenty popular, Joe. Not so long ago, I mean, when I got here, we had a Democratic governor. We had a Democratic United States senator. In the last 15 years, we had a 50-50 split in the Montana State Senate. None of that is so far ago. Right here in Montana, for the first time ever in 2023 in state history since 1889, we had a Republican supermajority in the state legislature. So this new Republican dominance in the state is a new phenomenon, and it is not something that's too late to fix. And the district I'm running in here, sir, it's Western Montana. Montana's first. We know a Democrat can win it because a Democrat just won it last year. John Tester won this district. Well, he lost the state in the year that I would offer. The National Party was doing everything they could to make it hard for a Democrat to win. This is how we fix that.
So, that last part is really interesting. The question is, why did it move so far toward the Republicans? What did the Democrats do wrong, and how are you going to fix that?
Well, Joe, like a lot of things, what's happening in Montana is a lot like the rest of the country. It is just on overdrive. I mean, we are in a state that has the least affordable housing market in the country because, well, it's the most beautiful place in the country, and a lot of people discovered it. So a lot of folks started moving here, and now you have so much more ability than you used to have. And with the advent of remote work and all the rest, that meant costs started going up. And here in Missoula, the median home price is $570,000. It was about $200,000 6-7 years ago. Bozeman, it's just shy of $1 million. People are living through rising costs at a rate that exceeds almost anywhere else in the country. And, I would offer what has happened to Democrats is we have been subject to a national party that has gotten out of touch with voters. I mean, what I'm talking about on the campaign trail here is the median net worth of a congressperson is about $4 million, depending on the day and how good the stock market's doing. In Montana, the average wage is $60,000 a year. Then in Congress, the average age of a congressperson is 56 or 58 years old. And the Democrats are the older of those two parties. That is a problem. That is an issue of representation. And that leads to a disconnectedness and a lack of urgency for working people like me whose wages have not kept up with costs. We need to start fixing those things in big, bold, clear ways. And I think there's a hunger for that right now from people who voted both ways last election.
Well, yeah, Joe may disagree about this, but I feel that that the way the Democrats went off the rails was to overemphasize cultural issues and identity politics, and not to emphasize the things that you emphasize in your video, which are affordability and fairness.
Yeah, Joe. I mean, I hear you there. What I think about is, I'm a Vonnegut fan. I don't know if you ever read him, but he's got a great line in one of his books that you should dedicate yourself to the largest abstraction you can wrap your arms around. And when you're working 2 or 3 jobs at a time, like I did my entire time taking classes at the university here, it is a lot harder to dedicate yourself to a bigger and broader abstraction. Like, we need to do what government is here to do, which is to address material gaps, to make people's lives materially better first and foremost. And if people don't have to be stressed about just filling up their fridge, well, they have more time to extend the kind of compassion and empathy that we deserve and expect from our neighbors.
Yeah, Joe, I don't disagree with you. What I think is the national, Washington is just a lot of times focused on all the wrong things, and why I don't worry about midterms so much is because of candidates like Sam. I mean, in other words, it's the local candidate, who's reflecting what's going on in the district, knows what's going on there, isn't paying attention to what anybody in any power broker in Washington's trying to tell them. And I think we've got plenty of those candidates like you, Sam, around the country this year. I'm really excited about that, you and others that are, I think, a new generation of Democratic leadership that wins at the local level. That's what's going to change the party and change the party brand nationally over time. As voters respond to you, you're in this district's R plus a 5 Republican district right now in terms of its rating. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, sir. And I mean, better than anybody, those ratings, they are reflective of the candidates that we choose.
Right.
Right. If we want to change that, well, I would offer should find a way to select candidates and to find candidates who can actually reflect the people here. And that means reflecting economic lived experience. That means being more reflective of people's age and the struggles that most of us are dealing with on the ground and most of our representation in Congress is not dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
Hey, Sam, we've just been through a kind of amazingly ridiculous couple of weeks of American politics. And I'm wondering what you're getting from the constituents you're trying to woo when it comes to Donald Trump portraying himself as Jesus, Donald Trump getting us into a war in Iran that few people understand. And I also noticed that in your video, you don't talk about foreign policy all that much. How do things feel on the ground there? How are people reacting to these very dramatic events?
I mean, I'll tell you broadly, Joe, I mean, last night I was in Bozeman and we had 30 some students at Montana State. And then that evening we had 80 some folks in a room talking about what they need. What's not any different is people are still struggling to afford the basics, and young people are still struggling to conceive of how they would ever own a home in a state like this. If anything is sunk through with, say a whole lot of my friends or coworkers who voted for some of these schlubs, it is something like the war in Iran. Because of all of the terrible things that have happened in the last year and a half, I would offer maybe one of the few redeeming things about an America First platform was this notion that we were going to end these endless wars. And the notion that if we cannot afford to make sure that people can afford basic health care and that people can actually have a safe place to send their kid, that we cannot afford to shower wealth on armaments everywhere. And that is a lie that I really think has broken through with a lot of my friends who are pissed off if they're paying 25% more at the pump and seeing that they're being lied to about what we really can and cannot afford when we spend over $1 billion a day overseas here.
I used to take
the reasons the plus 5 doesn't bother me at all is because people keep talking about blue waves and stuff. I don't see that. What I see is independence. It's a whole bunch of people that have had it, and that it's actually. I know we get all focused on on what's wrong with the Democratic brand and all that stuff, but I think that it's what's going on is it's sort of surpassed that now. You have people are hurting. The prices. They were promised prices were going to go down. That's not happening. They're going up. Promised we weren't going to get into these forever wars. We're in one, or war in the Middle East. And I don't know if you're seeing this. That's what my question is. Clearly independents have bolted away from it. They're in the I've had enough, and I want real change and new ideas. Are you? That's what I'm saying. Are you feeling, anything on the ground that says it's happening in Montana too? That it's a broad coalition, not just Democrats that want change.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of frustration on the ground, and the thing I keep repeating is we cannot simply win on the backs of frustration on saying that you ought to hate the other guys more than us, because that is not a meaningful victory. Right. What I see on the ground is, when I started the campaign 3 months ago, it ain't been that long. I had a fella week 1 up in Kalispell, Flathead Valley. It is a pretty conservative neck of the woods. Sure. Show up to one of our first events, and he was a little older than me, but in his mid-30s, and he had a hell of a great mullet, and he had his 2-year-old daughter, and he said, I make $47,000 a year as a forester. And he said, I have never seen a place in the Democratic Party for someone like myself. And he had some distasteful comments. Cole and I, we did not agree on everything, but he said, you know what? I got a 2-year-old daughter, and I don't know where I'm supposed to send her, because we're in a state where childcare costs about $19,000 a year if you can get into it. And Cole is not the sort of person who would have ever conceived of himself as a Democrat, but he was real excited to see somebody who just seemed like a normal working person and whose struggles could reflect his own struggles, because that's what credibility looks like. And I mean, y'all have worked in politics for a little bit longer than me. I mean, I've done organizing and advocacy work between fire seasons the better part of this last decade. And I worked at the state level. And one thing I know is something there are dark, smoke-filled rooms. I mean, what that is, it's called a conference committee. And if all 8 or 10 people in a conference committee are worth $1 million or more, if no one in that room knows what it's like to have your belly full because of food stamps, or to work 3 jobs and not have enough to pay rent, well, that's going to change what sort of hills they decide to die on. And that is going to change the urgency with which they address economic concerns. If we want to change that, we need to get people into the positions of power who know what all that's like. And that's what's different about this campaign. That's what seems to be getting people excited, whoever the hell they voted for last time.
Back in the day, I embedded with the troops in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I was obsessed with those issues. And then I started taking road trips across the country. And my first road trip was from New York to Los Angeles, by way of the southern route, not your route. And I swear to God, I didn't get one or two questions about Iraq or Afghanistan. The only foreign policy issues that people cared about was China, and that was because they thought China was affecting their pocketbook. Is that the kind of reaction you're getting when from what from your audiences? It appears to be.
I would offer it depends on age, but overwhelmingly, yeah, folks are most concerned with keeping food on the table and paying the bills and keeping the lights on, especially because that's gotten so hard. A lot of younger people in this state are more aware of what's going on overseas because they have access to social media and they are seeing visceral, visual, videos and images of what's going on when we spend $1 billion a day raining chaos and cruelty overseas. That has an emotional impact. And one of the things that we have to do here is to bridge the divide between a lot of younger voters who could or should be Democrats and a lot of older folks or middle-aged folks who don't have time or are not engaged with what's happening overseas. That is a divide that can be bridged. And again, it's kind of what you're getting at, Joe and Joe. This is what a new generation of leadership looks like. It's somebody who knows what it's like to be native to that platform and also knows what it's like to struggle to pay the bills.